One, two, three, four.
Greetings and welcome to Star Seeds of Freedom. And thank you so much for being here. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I don't have much use for politics or politicians because usually it's just a whole bunch of talk and deals being made and money being made with no one's best interest at heart except for that of the politicians and whoever is controlling them. However, today I've got someone with me who's very unusual, very special, pretty rad guy really, out of Oregon. And if you don't know who he is, after this talk show segment, you are going to know who he is, and I think you're going to really like him. So I hope you're going to stay tuned and hear what he has to say, and let's see what that is. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Star Seeds of Freedom. I'm Carrington MacDuffie, and I'm so excited to have with me today Senator Dennis Linthicum. And it's very rare. In fact, I've never had a politician on this show because, generally speaking, I don't put a lot of value in politicians, and you know why. However, this is a very, very unusual guy, and I'm just thrilled to have him because he's actually someone who works directly from not even the notions, but the natural law of our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. So, Senator Linthicum, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
You bet. It is great. We've had conversations over the past couple of weeks about trying to put this together. I appreciate you making the time and allowing space for me. I think it'll be fun for listeners in Texas. I'm from Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in the if people are familiar with Oregon, it's the eastern part of the state. You may have heard of the eastern part of the state because they want to be part of the greater Idaho movement. They want to join with Idaho because they don't like what's happening in the smoking ruins of downtown Portland. Yeah. And so there's this big initiative. I was the chief sponsor of that legislation for the Move Idaho border movement in Oregon. There was a sponsor in the Idaho House. It passed in the Idaho House and didn't make it through the Idaho Senate. My legislation in the Oregon Senate never made it out of committee. And so we'll try again. There's 36 counties in Oregon. 13 of them have passed local initiatives at the county commissioner level to join Idaho instead of Oregon. So where King George had 13 colonies to worry about, Governor Kotek has 13 counties to worry about. And our counties are big counties, not as big as Texas, of course, but I have nearly 20,000 square miles, a little over 20,000 actually, in my district. Mostly cattle country, mostly agricultural land, forest land, lots of forest land, and people who know how to manage the earth, the lifestyle, be productive with their labor and with agricultural products. And the people who live in the city don't realize that the green beans actually got grown out in a field somewhere. They just think they magically show up in a cardboard tray with the shrink wrap over the. So I'm a state senator, and I used to write a newsletter called the Dirt Road Economist because everything originates off of a dirt road.
Yes.
Everything originates off a dirt road. You've got a granite counter do you think, granite counter comes out of the store like that? No, it was harvested. It was an extraction by machines and diesel power, all of that. There are no electric vehicles out there harvesting blocks of granite that get on and polished and your kitchen. It came off of a dirt road. Men in work boots, steel-toed boots, in large machines, in jackhammers and saws and hard work, day in and day out, bringing you the products that you know and love, whether it's the I-beam holding up the skyscraper, or the beautiful finishes, even the marble in the shopping mall, all of that stuff, everything. You look around you in any room, the textiles, the material, the extraction that has taken, whether it's wood or steel or man-made materials, or whether it's food. Where'd your cabbage come from? Where'd your spinach come from? Where'd your potatoes come from? They may have come from Klamath County, which is my home county, or Idaho. That this area is famous for onions and tomatoes and root crops and whatever, because we're up in the Pacific Northwest. But people forget that everything that makes modern life possible, even your electricity, comes off of a dirt road. And to imagine that somehow a city life is the way of the world is just an incomplete view of how life works, because life really starts on an oil field. It's a dirt road out to a grasshopper that's putting it into a tank that's getting picked up by a truck or put into a pipeline or something. It all starts out there. The windmill, even, which is the most inefficient form of energy collection you've ever imagined, is down some dirt road and was put in by men in their Carhartts and boots. And to think, for all these renewable energy fools who are in the marketplace today, to think that somehow this is just magical renewable energy is just ridiculous. They're getting sold a story by political class, and the political class will end up robbing them blind as electric rates go through the roof.
Yeah. People are, I think, I think people are maybe good-hearted about it, thinking, oh, green, but they've really been sold a bill of goods. And it's being shown over and over. You still have got to go back to oil at this point. And that's a whole subject about, energy sources. But we've seen how we need to shore up our wind turbines and our solar panels with oil. So, and our electric cars. So, coal and oil. So, yeah, it comes back to the land, right?
Yeah. Your listeners may appreciate this. My wife Diane and I have lived off the grid for over 25 years. So before the Gen Zers ever dreamed of renewable energy and living, we've been living off the grid. We started with 1,000 kilowatt solar panel. It was 10 panels, 100 each. So that's equivalent of 10 light bulbs if the sun was shining, 10 100-watt light bulbs if the sun was shining. And that's how we started here in our little pocket of Eastern Oregon.
Mhm.
And we're still off the grid. We've lived in this same house. I built this house. We were a homeschooling family, so part of our adventure was building the house. My son is now in construction. He's nearly 40. My daughter's equine therapist, and so she's been involved with horses. We were on agricultural land, cattle production, horses, living here in what the typical person doesn't even recognize as a self-sustaining lifestyle. And I know firsthand the idiocy of solar power. This is artificial light that's on.
Yeah.
There's no sunshine out. It's
Right.
raining in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And when my batteries go, because like your iPhone died. Oops, my iPhone died and I don't have any power. Where do you get the power from? You go find a plug and you plug it in. Where did the plug get the power from? And nobody can think past second base. The plug got the power from the grid. Where does the grid get their power from? And Pacific Northwest, most of our most of our electricity comes from water power, hydro, run-of-river hydro,
Right.
or from
Right.
coal plants in Wyoming. And we're in the process right now of blowing the largest dam removal project in the history of the world, where we're taking out 4 dams on the Klamath River to turn those into, quote, their pre-colonial natural state. Now, there's an interesting phrase. We're tearing out infrastructure to return to our pre-colonial days. And in Texas, you'll recognize this as depopulating the rural parts of Oregon and Texas and any part of the country where you actually have men working the land, that dirt road economy that happens with every chicken coop and rabbit hutch scattered throughout the land. These people are going to get pushed off of their land as we restrict water, we restrict electricity, we remove diesel. There was a bill in Oregon 2 years ago to outlaw diesel engines on agricultural land. Now, if you do that, essentially you're cutting your own throat. How do you operate agricultural equipment without diesel? This is what makes what's happening in Germany so utterly important. You see the farmers, no farmers, no food.
Yes.
And it's a big, big issue.
Yes, yes, the Netherlands also, and I mean there have been big protests in Germany, and their whole energy source situation has been it's been a mess for a while now. But so does it look like I know, having lived actually in the Pacific Northwest, I'm aware of how the power was, or electricity was, always pretty well priced in the Pacific Northwest compared to the rest of the country because of the hydroelectric source. Are those dams, the dismantling of the dams, really, is that really going to go through? I mean, the powers that be won't go down that road, but you know what I'm generally speaking about, don't want us to thrive, and they want us to go back into the Stone Age, obviously, because who would want to go back to pre-colonial, era to live, right? So yeah, do you expect that those will go through?
Yeah, there's 4 dams on the Klamath River right now. 2 of them have already been removed. They're moving from the furthest down in California, moving up towards, it's called the Klamath River Dam Removal Project. And they've taken 2 out. They're draining the reservoir behind dam number 3. They'll soon move to dam number 4, and all of them will be out but probably by 2025, 2026. I'm not sure the timeline for removing all of those. And there's a lot of parts to it aside from the electrical generation. There's reservoirs for fighting forest fires. There's lakefront property. There's all the beauty. There's flood control. There's agricultural water sources. When you blow those dams, there's no more control. There's no more, harnessing that power. There's no more reservoirs for a helicopter bucket to dip in during a forest fire or anything. All of those features that are part of our hydropower industry just disappear with like an eraser on a kid's homework assignment. They're just gone. And you'll never, ever bring them back. In World War II, when the Hoover Dam was built, we had anti-aircraft guns around the Hoover Dam to prevent, quote, the Japanese from destroying our infrastructure. We're now the ones in charge of destroying our own infrastructure. And it's ludicrous. It's absolutely
ludicrous.
ludicrous.
And it's not really it's not really we doing it, that we've been so infiltrated that it's not the American people. I mean, there are some people in the cities, as we know, in the so-called blue states where you are in the Pacific Northwest. We know that those crazy liberal politics are concentrated in the cities. And maybe they want to return, maybe they're going to really enjoy returning to pre-colonial days. I don't know. But so when you say that we can never bring them back, What that really means is that the expense of bringing them back would be astronomical, right?
Yeah, yeah. Look at inflation. You know what we spent to build those and put those in, compared to what it would cost today to put that infrastructure in place. And then the federal government, your state government as well as federal government, have all their bureaucrats hovering over. You need this permit, you need that, you got to watch out for the trout, you got to watch out for the salmon, don't forget the snail, don't forget the
Yeah,
little blue butterfly, don't forget the
right,
spotted frog.
right.
All of these, endangered species issues and whatever. And what nobody ever brings to the conversation is the fact that all of the wildlife, the game, will disappear when you take away the agricultural products, the farmland, the grasses that are grown for alfalfa, for timothy grass, for any kind of hay production. All of those crops are going to be gone from the landscape without water. And the animals that survive, because water has been distributed in our aqueducts and ditches everywhere across this Eastern Oregon landscape, all of those herds will disappear too. Right now, wolves are getting reintroduced, so cattle predation is a problem, sheep predation is a problem. Nobody seems to mind. We jokingly say we should release some wolves into downtown Portland and see what happens after we do that. And they would all of a sudden mind, because the little French poodle would get gobbled up
Yeah.
along with the kitty cat. But nobody minds when it happens to your guard dog or your chickens in the chicken coop.
You're right. Or the beef, which, okay, so I see two things that this conversation leads to. One is overregulation and the pushing of money into more and more into bureaucracy and regulation, which is completely against what the Constitution is about. And the other is getting rid of our food source by getting rid of our water source. And so we're supposed to all eat bugs, right? Um, So
Yeah.
I want to just highlight for people that Senator Linthicum has done a lot of work against, well, I mean, I like to try to think in terms of working for rather than against, because for seems to work better in the long run. But he really understands really well, people, how much bureaucracy has tied down all of our creative, industrial, every kind of creative potential. We're tied down like Gulliver and Lilliput with all these insane regulations. And if we were to rely more on natural law, think a lot of things would really take care of themselves. So this is a man who understands that and has been really working for that for a long time. The other thing that he's been working on, and I hope you'll talk about this for us, is the bill that you're trying to introduce to allow people to eat food. Can you talk to us about this?
Yeah, actually, what I was really involved in was, on the negative side of the fence. I was trying to defeat a bill that would take away your rights to eat food. There was a bill in Oregon. We have the initiative process where, whether it's a municipal initiative or a county initiative or a state initiative, there are rules for how many signatures you need, how many people need to sign it to make it to the state ballot or to make it to your county ballot or whatever, or be within a road district ballot initiative. Or even an irrigation district. All of these different districts all have some jurisdictional responsibility, and this jurisdictional responsibility is leveled out or aggregated or organized by federal law. So the federal rules for organizing a statewide ballot initiative, the people met the requirement. Well, actually, they didn't meet the requirement because I helped stop them. But their initiative was to make it a criminal prosecution to slay an animal in the state of Oregon. When I say slay, I mean kill. You could not kill a rat in your pantry, a mouse in the seed barn. You could not kill game animals. You could not fish for trout. You could not, butcher a cow, a beef cow. You couldn't butcher a lamb. You couldn't, smoke a goat and enjoy any kind of game or domesticated animal, because it was against the law to kill these animals. And now this is really a weird step. Like, how in the world is the state of Oregon going to outlaw criminalizing the killing of any domestic or wild animal or game? And at the state level, we're all free states. We can do as we choose. And this mindset, it's really a totalitarian mindset that people have become unhinged, and they don't realize how important it is that they stay within, some of the boundaries that were set up by our founders. We should not have schools that are teaching, kids, different, sexual deviancies or whatever. We should be promoting America's history. Yeah. We should be promoting our founders and their aspirations for liberty and giving you control of your own life and the virtues that were needed to sustain individual liberty. You cannot sustain individual freedom in a chaotic madhouse. You have to have certain governors or, censors on your own behavior, not on everybody else's behavior.
Yes.
So personal responsibility is a necessity for free markets. You can't buy a used car if that used car salesman or your neighbor isn't going to take any responsibility for maintaining the product, telling you the truth about the product. There's moral virtue is conducive to self-government and local communities and citizenship in our republic. And yet the government hates all of these things. Scientific truth is needed too. You cannot try to grow what doesn't grow well up here. You can't grow cactus in the Pacific Northwest. And in the same way, you can't grow Douglas fir in Austin, Texas, although there's probably some exotic places where a Douglas fir tree is in somebody's yard. But mathematics and science used to be our concepts for organizing our data and recognizing we could properly assess and manage our world. And now these are verboten. These are known as racist constructs. These are oppressive constructs. And therefore, what we see before us is the very nature of our cities deteriorating and our society deteriorating. And this effort with this initiative process IP3 was to make it illegal to do something common sense, like kill the rat that's been chewing on your child's toes in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're trying to make common sense illegal. And the excuse they give is that the founding fathers had slaves, but that's just an excuse. That's just a red herring, because everything that they laid down, and they knew slavery wasn't going to last, but everything, and of course we're all slaves actually, which is the thing that people don't see. The people who point at the founding fathers and say slavery don't understand that they themselves have been enslaved their whole lives. But that's an excuse. And the whole idea, the reason the government doesn't like these things challenge government, and the government wants to always, it's always working for its own survival and expansion. And that's back to the bureaucracy, right? The whole idea of our government initially was to be very small. I think that government's only supposed to have maybe 25 functions, and now there are 25,000 or whatever it is. So, I think that the government's going to, and when I say the government, it's just such a, it's it's such an abstraction, but it has very real roots. And when you said the word totalitarianism, that or totalitarian, that is the key. That's the key, because then the government is everything, and the people who, I mean, it's so ironic that you wouldn't be able to kill an animal, and at the same time, you're going to return to pre-colonial conditions. I wonder how this is going to work out. And it's all about, it's all part of this genocide plan, really. I mean, I just can't, there's no reason to stop short of saying that, because I think that's
Yeah.
what we're really dealing with.
Yeah, there's a favorite quote of mine. John Adams wrote this out. Everybody can look it up. He says, don't be intimidated. In other words, don't be afraid. Be not intimidated, nor suffer yourselves to be wheedled. And wheedled's a good word for your audience to learn. Think about how to use wheedled 5 times next week, and you'll be your hero in my book. But he says, don't be intimidated. Be not intimidated, nor suffer yourselves to be wheedled out of your liberties
Yes.
by any pretense of politeness, delicacy, or decency. And so we have too often in the United States of America, we have tried to be polite. We've tried to be delicate. We're trying to be decent. And you see this in every facet of life when it comes to the Supreme Court justice who didn't know how to define a woman, right? It's easy enough, but she's married. She has 2 children of her own, grown children. She's been a woman her entire life. She's been a little girl, a teenage girl, a grown adult woman, and she sits on the Supreme Court, and she knows the answer, but she's trying to be polite. It's a delicate subject. It's delicate. She doesn't want to, hurt anybody's feelings. She wants to be decent. She doesn't want to say, I know I'm a woman because I've got, and spit it out. So, but Adams continues on. He says, by any pretense of politeness, delicacy, or decency, these, as they are often used, are 3 different names for hypocrisy, chicanery, and cowardice. And so, with these 3 other words, hypocrisy, chicanery, and cowardice, you see what's going on. It's hypocrisy because she does know what a woman is, or
Yes.
it's chicanery. She knows what a woman is, but she's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's a fast one, and she's got some ulterior motive up her sleeve, or it's a cowardice kind of move because she knows what a woman is, but she's afraid of the turmoil that she'll face if she gives the correct answer.
Well,
So
and
she gets to,
all three,
she,
she's all
yeah,
3.
all 3. And this, just so people can recognize it and find it, this was 1765. This is a full decade, 11 years before the Declaration of Independence was signed. And John Adams had his wits about him. He could see chicanery and cowardice and hypocrisy all the time in the public square. He decided I should warn people they will be wheedled out of their liberties, which is exactly what's happening to us, not only here in the Pacific Northwest, but to
Oh,
you in
no.
Texas.
Yeah,
We are
all over.
getting wheedled out of our liberties by these people who we should boot from office.
Yes, yes. Well, and so this is one thing I wonder about too, because I think if the right people were in office, some things could actually happen really. I mean, not just to be Pollyanna hopeful about it, but I truly think that it could turn on a dime. And with the right people and the right leadership, things really could turn around. I mean, maybe we could have those dams, or we know there's other sources of electricity, and that's in our very near future. So I think that it's not that things are hopeless, but what you're pointing to, John Adams was amazing, and Jefferson also. If you actually read what these guys said, how did they, they saw it all happen right? They came, they knew, they saw what was going on in Europe and in England. They didn't just like show up and kind of make this stuff up. They're responding to everything that was already underway, and they have this new land and they're trying to create something that would actually not be the same Babylonian money magic, the whole same system. So I just want to point everyone to John Adams and Jefferson as well, and I'll put some information in the show notes for you to refer to. But I do think that things can turn around, and that there may be a vacating of office of some people coming soon. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I think people, what people fail to realize is, your freedom, your liberty is the key. You cannot win by being a Republican crony, or you can't win by being a Democrat crony. The only way you can possibly win is by sponsoring and promoting individual liberty and freedom. And that requires a moral compass that recognizes right from wrong, right? So when you're buying that used car or the used washing machine, or, whatever whatever tool the neighbor down the street is offering you, his old chainsaw, whatever it happens to be, there has to be some kind of, are you lying? Am I lying? Are we honest? Are we open? Are we negotiating in fair terms? Or do we have this warped and we're greedy little, monsters trying for our own good and not giving a rip about anybody else in our neighborhood? And so this moral compass issue is a really important issue. If up here in the Northwest, we've got 53% of our state is under federal jurisdiction as national forests. And these forests are immense. They're very dense, super gigantic trees, and they grow like weeds because there's plenty of rain. And if your compass is broken, if you can't tell north from south, you will be lost in the forest and you'll never get out alive. Yeah. And my point here is the compass has to have a true north so that you know what direction you are headed. Why are you going that way? Why is our nation going the way it's going? And it's going the way it's going because they broke the compass. They took God out of our schools. They took the Bible out of our schools. And I hate to be a preacher man, but I think it's an important concept. If you don't know male from female, if you don't know north from south, you're never going to make it out of this game alive. Yeah. You've got to have your wits about you, understand right from wrong, understand male from female, understand, drugs and living a wholesome life and living a virtuous life from just being a wild man on the street corner. And yeah. Your audience may think, well, wait, I like being a wild man on the street corner, but that doesn't harvest anything in this dirt road economy that we're quickly headed to. At some point, you're going to have enough prudence, enough wisdom, enough ability to assess the current conditions to be able to grow your own food, to harvest the crops that are available, to mine the granite rock or the gravel, whichever you might need. We've got more asphalt and gravel roads all over the place. In Texas in particular, there's gravel roads mapping the entire countryside. Somebody had to say, I'm going to turn these 10 acres into a gravel pit, and I'm going to sell this product for XXX, and I'm going to get some truckers with some belly dumps or some side dumps, and we're going to come through here, and we're going to use a excavator and a backhoe and a loader, and we're going to put it into those rigs, and we're going to diesel it down the highway. None of this happens without men and women who can think clearly, give a handshake, and make the economy function. If you strip all of that away, we don't have anything. And that's what the left is trying to do.
Yes,
They're trying to take away your ability to produce and raise your own family. And it's a destructive mindset.
and they're trying to take away common sense. I mean, they already have lost their common sense. And so they really have. I mean, and even, I mean, so a sense of right and wrong. I think there's also your sense, your intuition, our intuitive powers are really, really underused because they're replaced with all of this kind of rules-based structure, like you should decide things according to some rules somebody else made and what you were taught at college or whatever, instead of using your horse sense and also your intuition. And whether you even have access to a Bible or not, you know in your heart, right? It happens in your heart. Now, there are psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists who really don't have that sense. And so that means it's even more up to those of us who have that inborn sense, that humanity, and that's a humanitarian impulse as well, that comes out of wisdom, which is centered in the heart, right? So that's where your sense of right and wrong comes from, is here. And it doesn't come from here, but your common sense is the connection between your head and your heart, right? We're all capable of this, but there's been a lot of brainwashing and people have been wheedled out of their sense of common sense by the media and by many, many powers that have been brought to bear on people's thinking and on people's feeling, on their sexuality, their sexual urges, everything, you name it. The brainwashing and some people are more susceptible to brainwashing than others and are more easily wheedled, and some of us just will not put up with it,
Right.
No.
And I think you make a good point. There's plenty of room. This is, the founding fathers recognized free speech, your right to defend yourself, your right to your own privacy, your own property without a warrant. The Patriot Act blew the Fourth Amendment apart by the shivers. It doesn't even exist anymore.
Yes.
The federal government can spy on everything you think, do, or say.
And
they can plant material in your email that you never will even know until they go to prosecute you. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theory knucklehead. I'm just stating these are facts. They can do this, and they do this.
Well,
and so at some point, you and I may be at odds, but a little bit of introspection, like you said, would help us to see through our differences and then decide you have a comparative advantage in music. I have a comparative advantage in history. We'll each take our own tact. You'll pursue your music and weave in history. I'll pursue my history and legal understanding, and I'll pursue something else. And so it turns out we can work very well together without government telling us what to do.
Better without government.
We don't need.
Yeah, we have a natural synergy, right? A natural synergy. It's not. And that's part of what the whole idea about created equal really, that's what that really means, is that natural synergy. It isn't about, there's never going to be a hierarchy, or because there are some natural hierarchies, but it's that synergy. And also regarding conspiracy theorists, by the way, we know that term was coined at the time of JFK's supposed assassination. And that was it's a slur, right? But if you look at the last year, well, or a few years or whatever, however far back you look, it's the conspiracy theorists, I'm sorry, but who are the people who are always proven to be right. So I don't see that as a slur anymore. I started calling myself a conspiracy analyst, because that's what it really is, because the conspiracies are real. So I think that the taint has to be taken off of that term. in order for people to kind of come free and allow themselves to look at what's really going on. Language is very strong, right? As you know, as a law guy, you know how powerful words are and how they can be used to form people's thinking. So we got to break free of that one because
Right.
I'm sorry, the
Yeah.
conspiracies are real. Okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, it turns out they're all true.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like uh, the 6 foot distancing during COVID was a lie.
Yeah.
The masking during COVID was a lie. This shot will stop the transmission of COVID was indeed a lie. This will, keep you from getting COVID was a lie. So, how many lies do we have to rack up before we say these guys are dishonest? These buggers are dishonest. Why do we allow them to continue? Why isn't Fauci in jail? Why isn't he facing criminal charges?
Yeah.
In my conversation with Garrett Icky, this was about my grand jury petition. I've been part of beyondthecon.com, and we have a team of specialists, and we're trying to get a federal grand jury to investigate COVID fraud because it costs the taxpayers trillions of dollars and upended many of their lives and liberties and destroyed their businesses, all because some totalitarian idiot made a rule that there was no scientific evidence or backing for. And it's a clear violation of the Information Quality Act, which is like 20 years old. The IQA is a 20-year-old measure under the Office of Budget and Management that says the information disseminated by the federal government has to be accurate. And they have to guarantee that the information they disseminate is appropriate for the task at hand. They're going to use it for something. It's got to match what they're trying to do. And we have rules today. The CO2 is a dangerous gas. The COVID shots, the vaccine mandates, all of these things. This is all, horse manure and worse. Yeah. And we can't even get a handle on the government. They have grown so big.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And the DOJ is captured. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with that. And we're dealing with that problem of cowardice and politeness and, all of that again, too.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because people, I don't know what people think about Fauci. I mean, it's so beyond me. I just can't even really get my mind into how that mind would work that would think that guy had anything worthy to offer. But yeah, the DOJ, I'm not sure how we manage that. Well, I wanted to circle back to what happened with the measure for being unable to kill animals. Tell us the end of that story.
So we successfully defeated that this year, but it's scheduled for being on the ballot again in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they're not giving up. There's one thing you'll see is these little miniature tyrants that we're raising throughout our culture. They want control, they want power, they want money, they want what they want, and they're not about to sit down and go to sleep. Yeah. And what's beautiful about that is we know right from wrong. We know appropriate from inappropriate. We know what will be good for people versus how we make money. And our communities, our families, our rural lifestyle leads us to understand that we can't give up either. This is perseverance is the key lesson that we have to learn from this. We have to be on top of our game and be willing to fight the fight, or they will steal everything right out from under us.
Yeah, that's so right. So, and you're still fighting the fight, and I'm not sure what's going on are you on the ballot what's going on with your career and with the ballot for you? Are we still able, those of us who are in Klamath in that district, able to vote for you? Brush me up on that.
Yeah, well, so you bring up a touchy subject. I'm actually banned from the ballot, so I'm a Trump lookalike here.
Of course you're banned
We
from the
did,
ballot because
and
you're a good guy,
you're
so they're going to ban you. Sorry.
your audience will recognize this. We denied quorum, and in Oregon, we have 30 senators. 20 senators makes quorum. With a quorum, you can do business. So if you have a homeowners association with 20 of the homeowners present, you could do business. You don't need all 30 there. You could do it with 20 as a minimum or something like that.
Mhm.
Your irrigation district, your local road district in rural parts of Texas probably all operate the same way. So to do business in the Oregon Senate, you need 20 members. We had 11 Republicans who were willing to walk away and say, we're not going to allow a quorum. We're going to stop business. And the reason we stopped business wasn't because of this law that would allow you only to kill and munch on crickets and mealworms. In other words, we don't mind killing insects. We do mind killing, crawdads and trout, which is really just a bizarre line in the sand. Where does this come from? But we walked out to deny quorum because the Democrat majority was instituting a law that would allow transgender surgery on any child of any age without parental consent. So this is serious stuff. And we said, we can't allow that. You got to at least have a minimum age in there. You can't say any child of any age. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they refused to negotiate. We came to, this area where we couldn't figure out what else, we could offer, what kind of horse trading we could do. They included also abortion at any time during all, the entire length up to the day of birth, abortion, any child, any age, without parental consent. And it actually was child, not any girl of any age or whatever. It was any child, like, what? Our compass is broken again.
Yeah.
And so we said, no, these two things are just at odds with our understanding of life and the preservation of life and the happiness of humankind and family and the next generation, et cetera. We can't allow this to continue. So we denied quorum. And there's a rule that says the Senate president can give you an excuse for your absence or not. So the Senate president said, 10 of you guys who denied business of the state of Oregon, which is super, super important, you are all banned from the ballot during the next term. And so my term is up now. Half of us, 5 of us are up now. Half of us will be up in the next during a 4-year cycle.
I see.
And so the Democrat majority Senate president essentially says, I don't have permission. So I filled out my application. I turned it in. The Secretary of State's office sends it back to me. They were kind enough to refund my deposit for the application. And they said, sorry, Senator Linthicum, you're not qualified to be a senator. And it's like, why aren't I qualified? Because you didn't get excuses from the majority party president, of the Senate. And it's like, well, this is a catch-22. They're making up laws and just winging them about to keep people off the ballot. So I am actually not on the ballot. And we went before the Oregon Supreme Court about 4 weeks ago and all 7 justices were there. They heard the arguments. They heard that this is a violation of our free speech. They heard it's a violation of another part of the Oregon Constitution where a quorum is a requirement to do business. And since it's a constitutional requirement, they can't very well throw me out of office because I was following the Constitution, even though they're trying to do that. And our claim is that this is just it was initiated as punishment to somebody who didn't go along with the Democrat majority.
Yes.
And
yes.
I'm thankful we have enough Republicans that we stopped it. Oh, and by the way, after about day 12 or 13, after 10 days of unexcused absences, you're off the ballot. And I think the Democrats didn't expect us to go full bore. They thought we would, capitulate and come meagerly back in and they could gavel the bill through. But we stayed out. And then at day 13, they decided, we can negotiate. We can put in a minimum age here. And this was an enormous cost to Oregon taxpayers. Anybody from anywhere in the world, from the Netherlands, from France, from Yugoslavia, anywhere could come to Oregon to get this surgery paid for by the Oregon taxpayers without legal paperwork and without parental notification. So in Tennessee, if I don't actually know what the abortion rules in Texas look like, but in Texas, let's say there's a 20-week limit. You can only abort a child during the first 20 weeks of his preborn existence. You could ship your child to Oregon. A parent doesn't even need to be there. The rapist who got this 14-year-old girl pregnant could fly her to Oregon, put her into the hospital, have the abortion done, and fly her back home, and parents would never know about it. Now, the public ought to be concerned here. What are the ramifications for parental consent when a hospital in Oregon just performed an abortion on your daughter and she has complications?
Yes.
Or worse, they cut off her healthy breasts and and tried to screw something else on instead. This is just a horror show of lunacy coming from the Democrat left. And so your question started with, are you running again next year? And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, this is the whole answer we need. Yeah. So you can catch the next term then at this point?
Right. Well, yeah, we don't know how this is going to play out. We're still in front of the court. The Supreme Court hasn't. They're still opining. They're wondering about this. They're wondering what the definition of a woman is, right?
Yeah.
And we'll have trouble getting them. This is back to the language. They are, using chicanery. They're wheedling our liberties right out from. They're wheedling my liberty out. I'm not qualified. Secretary of State says, Senator Linthicum, I'm sorry, you're not qualified. And they deny me a place on the ballot. My wife, Diane Linthicum, has the same name. And so we created a political action committee, Linthicum for Oregon. And I'll be happy to be her staff member. And she can run for office. And she's been with me. We've been married 43 years. So we live and breathe the same language and thoughts. And we are very accustomed to being part of this game together. And she's on the ballot. So even if the Supreme Court says, Linthicum, you're out of here, the Senate president will still have to acknowledge, Senator Linthicum, would you have a remonstrance today? And Senator Linthicum will be proud to stand up, and I'll be sitting there by my senator's side,
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. They think they're gonna win and they're not going to. They're not
well,
going to.
they have more, schemes up their backside than you and I can imagine. And so this is a great conversation. We could keep going. I mean, there are so many things happening here in the Pacific Northwest. I'll let you return
Well,
a phone call and we'll try again.
yes, let's do that. I can see a whole array of issues, and there's more. And you have, I want to point people, though, before we sign off, and while you're still here, I want to point people to Senator Linthicum's website and his newsletter, because he has a really inspiring newsletter. It's really informative, but it also, he really does draw on quotes from our founding documents and what we call our founding fathers. And that stuff, when you start putting it together, if you haven't done this, with what's going on now and the specifics of what is going on now, everything starts to connect. And he does a really excellent job of presenting that so that it starts to make sense. We are dealing with lunacy. We truly are, and destructiveness, but creativity always wins. So we will win, but there's a lot more to talk about, and I'm just so pleased to have had you today for our audience, and that you've taken the time to, to air some of your ideas and share some of what you've been dealing with, on the front
Did you
lines.
did you
Thank you
did you
so
get my
much.
newsletter this morning? Did it come in?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to look at it. For some reason, it went into my junk mail, but everything else you've sent me goes to
Yeah,
my
this
email.
is
So I
yeah,
just have,
this happens a lot. They don't like when you're getting, when good stuff shows up, they put it in the junk mail box.
oh yeah. Well, you've had trouble with
Yeah.
that, right? With mailer.
But
Yeah, yeah, they will pick up. Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I'm happy just to subscribe people if they send me a note, dennis@electdennis.com. And I can just, you don't even need to say subscribe me or something on the subject line. I'll put people in the hopper. And I've quit using the government website because the government website won't let you say certain things. And then
Of course.
when addressing
Yeah.
COVID fraud, MailChimp shut me down also. And so I don't really have a good landing page for my stuff. And I used to write as the Dirt Road Economist, but I don't publish stuff there anymore. And I'm going to have to circle back and publish all of my newsletters out there because I'm losing my options. Actually, I should go to Substack, or
Substack's a really good idea, and then you can say what you want. You did use some clever ways of talking about the COVID fraud. I did see that in the
yeah,
newsletter. I think that was in this morning's newsletter. And we do
yeah.
what we can. We're going to work around it, and we are going to get this done, seriously. So I will put your email address in the show notes, and I really encourage people to reach out to him. You can see he's an awesome guy. He's exactly the kind of person that we need to have representing us. Anyone who's listening to this show would vote for this guy, And the thing is, we tend to think that our votes are going to get it done, and that isn't really true. This is another thing that Senator Linthicum and I could talk about, what actually is as an American, your job is. It's not just voting. It doesn't stop there. But when you do vote, this is the kind of person you want to vote
Yeah,
for,
well, good. Hey,
right?
thank you.
So,
And beyondthecon.com is also a great COVID fraud website. We've got our grand jury petition. We've got our background material. It's probably 600 pages worth of material. You can get by with reading the first 100 or 69 pages of our grand jury petition, and then start that in your local county. We have to have, there's 3,143 counties or in the United States. Every county has a board of commissioners or supervisors, however they're described in your county jurisdiction. Those counties have DAs. The DAs can start a grand jury investigation. The commissioners or supervisors can start a grand jury investigation. Your state court attorney general can start a grand jury investigation. We've got grand juries happening in Florida and Arizona now. And
Yeah, that's good.
we need the landscape across Texas to explode with people who are
Yes.
demanding answers from the federal government.
Thank you so much, and for the work that you've been doing, the commitment, and the energy that you and your wife have put into this. And we're just gonna keep doing it, right? You're not gonna get rid of us. So
Good.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Senator Dennis Linthicum. I'll be talking with him again. There's a lot of stuff he knows a lot about that I only know a little about that I think we all should know more about. So, and his stories. I mean, can you imagine doing that job? I can't. Obviously, I'm not cut out for it. I'm supposed to be a musician, and that's what I am, a songwriter and all that stuff. But I'm doing this right now with you all because we're at a crucial time. And it's people like Dennis Linthicum that are really helping us over the hump. And so many other people that I'm going to be also talking to. So come on back really soon. If you enjoyed this, please like and share and subscribe and leave your comments and come back soon. And thanks so much. We're all part of a wave, and that wave is breaking. There's nothing they can do to stop us. I'm Carrington MacDuffie. This has been Star Seeds of Freedom.